Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The Quran encourages us and praises people who reflect upon nature. This is what religious language often terms as meditation. Meditation in the sense of reflection. And this reflection is of two types. One is active and one is passive. The intention here is to understand God in a much broader context and to see the beauty of God filling the entirety of the cosmos. By studying nature, by seeing how wonderfully everything is balanced, how everything is operating, the meticulous interconnectedness from the greatest of things such as massive stars and galaxies to the smallest of creatures like little ants, how they are functioning, how they are all intertwined, how everything is interconnected. The whole idea here is for the inner being to open up and not see the things as mundane objects, but to see them as a reflection of something far more profound. That it is nothing less than the being of the most beautiful one that is surrounding us, that is ubiquitous, that is the overwhelming reality. Nothing is as it seems. So devotion is also to understand God as something that is much grander than what we've understood. Not somebody who is in the heavens or who makes destiny or who is only our personal friend or our master, but that he is the irresistible. He is the one that fills all things. As Imam Ali Salamullah alayhi says, that I have not seen anything, but I have seen God above it and below it, in front of it and behind it. Or as Imam Hussein Salamullah alayhi says, when were you hidden? That eyes needed to see you. Blind are the eyes that do not see you observing over them. When we find God in this way, the soul becomes relieved of its constant preoccupation with daily life, with what people are saying, with where my morsel will come from, with the dangers that I face. Because when we see this beautiful balance within the cosmos, and we see that He is the one who is filling the whole universe, then we tend to lose those apprehensions, those fears. That lower self gives way and we ascend within the higher self. Now this examination of nature is done in two ways. One is what the Quran says, do they not see the camel, how it's been created? Now look at the camel. It's adapted for that sandy environment with sand dunes and water being in distant places, so it has a hump in which it stores the water, its eyelids that protect it from sandstorms, its legs and its feet, the way it can climb on sand hills. We have to wonder, was the camel created for that environment, or was that environment created for the camel, or both of them created each other and they evolved together? The beauty that is displayed there immediately opens the mind that no, something else is going on here. The truth is far more beautiful, profound and deep, and deeper than what I have understood. And that is why the Blessed Prophet would say, when he would see a group of people engaged in intellectual discourse and in reflection, and see a group of people busy in prayers, the Prophet would say that an hour of that discussion and reflection and meditation upon nature is worthier than 70 years of prayers and fasts, because ultimately that hour of reflection opens the mind, and therefore the devotion is accurately directed to a God who is so supreme, so grand, and so majestic, and therefore the soul begins to lose itself very, very easily. Now, there are two levels of reflection, as I said. One is that we meditate on nature. And the other level is that we go into a state of passivity, where we do not enforce our thoughts upon nature, but we become receptive of whatever nature wants to give to us. So it shares its own meanings with us. When we become calm and quiet from within, just sit in a place, observe things in natural surroundings. When a drop of rain descends upon the palm of our hands or the back of our hands, and we feel that sensation of the coolness of the drop of water, we understand how was this sense perception created. What a phenomenal thing sense perception is. And then we feel the wind blowing against our faces, and we feel that sensation of that wind. We can begin to think something as subtle as the wind and something as receptive as our skin, and how it influences our mood. Or we sit under the sun on a spring's day and we feel filled with joy to reflect, how is it all happening? Or we see a bird in flight, or a colorful butterfly displaying its beauty and the way it flaps its wings. Here, nature suggests itself to us, and we begin to understand that the world is not the way we have become accustomed to understanding it. It is actually a display of the most beautiful one. When these sort of meanings begin to come within us, it begins to liberate us from our very petty state and begins to bring us into a greater state of acknowledgement of the beauty of God. Now, Imam Hussein states this in his dua. He says, "Oh Allah, I see you in display so evidently that I no longer look at nature to lead me to you as the author of the nature, for it is as if I'm seeing the author himself displaying his own meticulous working." And on that note, I was watching the Natural Geographic, and they were talking about volcanic eruptions and the level of gases that are released from it. Now, there are two levels of gases that are shot by the volcanic eruptions. One is a lower level, and the other one is a higher level. Now, both of them come at different times. The first stream of gas that is released carries with it small insects, raises them and places them on top of mountains. And before the second layer of gases are released, snow falls on top of the mountain and covers those little creatures. Then when the stronger gases are released at a somewhat higher altitude, they carry bigger insects with them and place them on top of the mountains. Now, these bigger insects are those insects that are blind, and they have soft beaks, and the only thing they know and the only function they have is to dig into the surface below them, and that surface naturally has to be soft. So when they are transported on top of the mountains, because they are bigger creatures, they don't die en route to the mountain. When they are taken on top of the mountain, they begin to function in their natural way of digging into the surface below them. And as soon as they dig through the blanket of soft snow, they find dead insects preserved for them, waiting for them as their sustenance. Now imagine when you meditate on nature and you arrive at this level of knowledge, and then when you say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Imagine the perspective at that point. And imagine the level of wholesomeness in that devotion, that I'm devoting to the sustainer of the whole of the world, the one who is able to sustain this blind creature who could have never received its sustenance on a flat surface of the earth. Its sustenance can only be given to it beneath the blanket of snow, and that was on top of a mountain, and it was transported there by a volcanic eruption. And its sustenance already waited for it. Then again, think of how it liberates us from our insecurities and our fears. When we say, Allah Rabbul Alameen, you sustain those creatures in that way. Will you not be able to sustain me? If you are my sustainer, my Lord, then my head will not bow to anybody else other than you. I will not humiliate myself. I will be true to my principles in my service and devotion to you, with full guarantee that you will look after me if you have destined life for me. So reflection is encouraged and meditation is encouraged within the Quran in many, many places, and also within the statements of the Prophet and the Imams. And this is of two types: active reflection and passive absorption of reality. And both of these need to be done. And I suppose the best way to do this is to set times where we can watch things on astrophysics, on natural sciences, and times in which we go into natural surroundings and sit calmly and quietly and allow the meanings to flow into us, and through that for us to grow into a greater state. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.